Opening soon is a new film called A Force of One, starring Chuck Norris. And with me today is Chuck. Well, welcome, Chuck, to Imperial College, and thanks for coming. I will start on your new film, A Force of One. Now, the part seems natural for you. How much of Matt Logan is you, or vice versa?
Quite a bit, Graham. I wrote the story, A Force of One.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, of course, A Force of One deals with a drug problem, which, you know, I'm a big, I give a lot of lectures about drugs and how bad they are and, you know, what they can do to you. And when I wrote the story, A Force of One, I wrote it specifically to explain a lot about the drug thing, but as well as I play a professional karate fighter in there too, which I was a world champion for 6 years, so there's a lot of me in the film.
Now, there is a lot of contact footage, so-called. Did anyone get hurt?
Well, not really accidents. You know, when we did the fights in the ring, it got a little rough in there because it's very difficult to choreograph a fight in the ring because you're moving around a lot, so the cameras cannot be stuck in any one particular place. So we decided that we would just kind of wing it in there and just kind of play it by ear, just kind of, you know.
Yeah, are the cameras that you actually see, are they the ones you actually use?
No, those were all phony ones.
Were stuntmen used to?
No, not. All the fight scenes that you saw in the film were actually, you know, because the people that were doing them were the best in the business anyway, so we didn't need stuntmen.
Is it more difficult to do controlled karate rather than sort of letting go?
It's different. I don't know if it is easier or harder because they're totally different. When you fight, when you fight with pads on, which is the full contact, which I did in the ring, then you're trying to make contact. But when you fight without it, you know, the traditional sense of karate, that's the more scientific method of being able to explode a kick or a punch and stop just short. Of course, the fight scenes like when I was fighting in the alley there and so forth, naturally I'm throwing kicks that are going past my opponent from the camera angle. It looks like I'm hitting him, but actually I'm missing. But from the reaction of my opponent, it looks like I'm...
Yeah, it must be difficult to just miss rather than
just
hit.
Yeah, because what I try to do in my fight scenes, I use certain people because when I do the fight scenes, we work pretty rough, and I do make some contact. So I use specific guys that I fight with, who I use the same guys all the time, and they're very tough. And so anyway, we can get in there, and I can make contact, and I can throw the kicks within a quarter of an inch without making contact, you know, in front of the face. I can miss his face by this much, and then from the side angle of the camera, it still looks like I hit him.
Yeah. Can you tell me how you first got into karate?
Yeah, I went into the service right out of high school.
Yeah.
And I was sent to Korea, and so I studied karate and judo while I was over there. And when I came back to the States, I had my black belt in karate, my brown belt in judo.
You also did other sort of martial arts, such as Tang Soo Do. Can you tell me the difference?
Well, each country has their own particular style. Yeah. In Korea, the words are Tang Soo Do, you know, and Taekwondo. Those are the Korean words for karate. See, karate is a Japanese word. The Chinese word for karate is Kung Fu. So each country has their own name, but the basic techniques are pretty much the same.
Did you ever go professional?
Yes, I turned professional in 1968 when I won the world title. That was the professional aspect.
What, giving exhibitions and classes and things?
Yeah, you know, I do a lot. I used to give a lot of exhibitions and demonstrations and seminars and things of that sort there prior to going into the film.
Yeah, you became an instructor in 1961 with private tuition to the Osmonds and things.
Yeah.
How did you get around to doing this?
Well, when I started teaching, I started teaching some celebrities. You know, in the
you
60s.
started with celebrities rather than kids, so.
No, I was teaching first. I was teaching kids, and I was a regular karate instructor. And then when I won the world title, and I got all the notoriety from winning the world championship, I started getting, people started calling me up and asking me if I would teach them. You know, the Osmonds was a group, and
you taught all of them, did you?
Pardon me? I taught the whole family, from Jimmy, you know, all the way up to you know, Donnie and Marie.
Oh, not the dad and the mum.
No, they didn't take it. No, the whole family besides the mother and father took it.
What about your family? Do your kids
Yeah, I
learn
have
it
two
all?
teenage sons, one 17 and one 15.
Are they interested?
Oh yeah, sure. They've been trained since they're 5 years of age. And of course, between other sports, they play football and baseball and all this stuff here too, which I want them to do. And in between that, they will still train in the martial arts.
You know, any chance of them becoming a world champion?
No, that's not their goal. They're really not. I don't want them to follow in my footsteps. I'm really not interested in my boys becoming another Chuck Norris. That's not important. I want them to be their own person, to do what they feel is what goals that they want to set for themselves. I want them to work toward that, not to follow in my footsteps.
Yeah. Now, you've written 2 books. One of them is Winning Tournament Karate. You've said that there's a philosophy and an attitude in winning. How important, though, is it? I mean,
it's
is it more
extremely
so at the
important,
top
Graham.
level rather than the bottom?
It's the top. See, the physical application of karate really is the smallest part of it. Most people think of karate strictly as a physical application, but what it does for you mentally, psychologically, and emotionally is much more important than what the physical attributes can be. For instance, we teach success orientation, positive-minded type goals, because many students we get into our school come in there and they're in a very negative train of thought. I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't accomplish things. And what we try to do as teachers is to push out all the negative thoughts and replant positive ideas of what you can do, what you can accomplish in life. And we set formulas for them, which is very good, which works in all areas of life, not strictly karate, but college training or whatever. And the formula that I emphasize is that whatever goal you set for yourself, which we all do as we get into the adult world, we all set goals for ourselves. The first thing you must have is a mental image in your mind of what it is that you want to accomplish. Like you're going to college now, you know what in your mind of what it is that you want to achieve. Secondly, you must be determined and persistent enough to stick with it long enough. Now this is where a lot of people fail, because whether you're going through college to get your master's or whatever, you're going to hit obstacles en route. You know, it gets tough at times. And a lot of times people will quit because of these obstacles in the way. And we always emphasize the fact that you must be determined to overcome each obstacle en route. And then if you will study or train, whatever it may be, accordingly, there's not a thing in the world that you cannot achieve.
Yes, so it's quite important to teach it at a young age.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you've also been quite successful in the line of business. I mean, you've got schools and shops and things going. What is interesting is you've got a whole load of stores in France. Now, how come
Well,
in France?
I got those from, the only reputation I've really developed in Europe, besides within the martial arts world, is the movie I did with Bruce Lee called Return of the Dragon, or Way of the Dragon, I think they call it here. In fact, it's showing right here in London right now.
Yeah, it is.
And that gave me a pretty big reputation, or notoriety, I guess you could call it. And so I was quite popular in France, and so a franchise person wanted me to use my name is what it is. They really just use my name and have these martial arts supply stores.
Why do you think it's France more than any others? Just because?
It's just that just one person happened to want it in France,
It's not that they're particularly interested in France about Kung Fu? Or?
No, I don't think any more so than England. It's just that this businessman just happened to want to open some martial arts supply stores, and he wanted to use my name. And
You're not worried about setting a cult following? Oh.
I wouldn't mind that, Graham. I don't mind a cult following, because the type of movies I want to do is a movie about a hero, a true-to-life hero. I think there's a big void of heroes on the screen today. For years the movies have been kind of anti-heroic. The guy's not bad, he's not good, he's kind of in between, gray.
Well, there's no John Wayne.
Right. And I think we need more of the John Wayne type people on. Of course, John Wayne was my generation.
Yeah.
And now, but the younger generation, I can't think of anyone that they can emulate like I did with John Wayne. And so I thought that it would be great to have a guy that walks softly but carries a big stick, type of a concept. A guy who tries to avoid violence at all costs, which we all do as teachers in karate. We do, but once he's pushed to the point where he can't get out of it, then have the ability to cope with it. That's something that we all wish we could do anyway in real life, is to avoid a situation if at all possible. But if there's no way out of it, at least have the ability to handle it. And it's something that we as men can relate to, and it's something the kids can look up to and emulate, and the parents would like for the kids to be like that type of a person. And then, of course, you can never become a superstar unless you have the female following too, and that's something that, hoping that the macho-ness of that individual will help draw the female audience.
Yeah. Now you've got a gym added to your home. How much do you practice?
Pardon me?
You've got a gym.
Oh yes, at home. Yeah.
Yeah.
I train every morning, 3 hours every morning, because the movies I do, which are action films, require as much physical strength and endurance that I needed when I was fighting professionally in karate.
Yeah,
because
so
when I do a fight scene in the movie, like when Force of One opens here June 1st, you'll see the fights, which will last 3-4 minutes. But it took me, 12, 16, 18 hours of solid fighting to get that 1 2-minute scene or 3-minute scene on the screen.
So it's not just to keep in shape.
No,
Yeah.
it is. Well, it is and it isn't. It's both, because I've been training now for over 20 years, and I would never ever want to get out of shape. I enjoy being in very good physical shape, so I would never quit training because of that reason. But livelihood-wise, for my livelihood, it's important that I do stay in very good physical shape.
Yeah. Now, moving on to your acting career, you of course went to Lee Strasberg School of Acting. When did you decide that you wanted to be a film star?
Yeah, well, when I decided to become an actor in 1974, of course, Lee Strasberg is the most influential acting school in America, and so I enrolled in Lee Strasberg's. But what I was looking for, because it's like anything else, you got to find the one that fits you personally, and they were great. But I was looking for an acting coach who was working specifically on film, for film. See, Strasberg and a lot of the others work for stage and theater. Well, I have no ambition to go on stage. I only want to do motion pictures. So I was looking for a coach. I finally found an acting coach by the name of Zena Provendy, who was head acting coach at MGM for 20 years. And so I got a hold of her, and I started training with her privately for the last year and a half.
It seems funny that being successful in karate and business, you should actually want to go into the film industry.
Well, it's goals. I'm a very goal-oriented person, Graham, and I achieved the goals I wanted in the karate world. I did, in the world title and my schools, and I was trying to decide what new energies I want to direct, where I wanted to direct my energies at. And Steve McQueen, who was one of my students at the time, suggested the acting field. And I just finished a movie with Bruce Lee called Return of the Dragon, so I decided I would pursue that.
Yeah, but your first debut was in 1969 with Wrecking Crew.
Oh gosh.
That wasn't a starring role or anything, but how did you get into that?
That was a very small role. No, I just won the world title, and the producer of the Matt Helm movies, there's a whole series of these Matt Helm movies, was in the audience. And he came up to me and he says, and he introduced himself. He said, "How would you like to be in a Dean Martin movie?" I go, "Sure." Because I had no, aspirations of being an actor at the time. I said, "Yeah." So he said, "Well, here's the script." So I took the script home, and I had one line of dialogue. And I'll never forget this, is that my one line was, "May I, Mr. Helm?" That was my one line, my big thing, right? So for 2 weeks, I'm trying to figure out, how should I say that line? Should I say it cool or macho or what? For 2 weeks, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, right? May I, Mr. May I, Mr. Helm, or whatever. So now we're going to shoot it. So now it's time, and what it is, the setup is that Dean Martin walks into this nightclub, and I'm the bodyguard for Elkie Summer and Nigel Green. And as he walks in, I'm sitting at this table, and as he walks down the aisle, I jump up in front of him, and I say, "May I, Mr. Helm?" And he's supposed to hand me his gun, and then he walks over to Elkie Summer and Nigel Green. So the cameras start rolling, and all of a sudden, man, I can feel myself tensing up. I feel my throat tightening up and all this stuff here. And he walks down the aisle, and I jump. I go, "May I, Mr. Helm?" My throat tightened up, and it came out like a whisper. And I said, "Well, there goes my movie career right out the window." But of course, at that time, I had, I was doing it strictly as a kick.
You didn't do any martial arts or anything at all in that.
Yes, I did. I fought Dean Martin in that movie. And
who won?
Well, Dean Martin does, of course.
Yeah.
Well, it was very interesting because he had a double, of course, who was a karate guy. And so he and I did the fight stuff, where the camera couldn't see Dean Martin's face. So now we have to do the close-up stuff where I have to fight with Dean Martin. So there's a scene where I have to throw a kick right over his head, a spinning heel kick, which is, kind of dangerous. And so I said, now, to Dean Martin, I said, "Now, make sure that you drop. I want you to drop way low, so I can throw the kick, over your head." I said, "Do you understand?" He said, "Oh, yeah." I says, "Okay." So we start fighting, so I throw the kick, and he drops about that far, and I hit him right in the shoulder, and he goes flying across the room. And I didn't throw it really hard because I was afraid to. I was afraid he might not drop, so I figured I'd just kind of swing the kick around. Well, he goes flying across the room, and the director almost has a heart attack. And I go, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" He says, "Oh, yeah, I'm okay." So we do the scene again. Well, now I'm going to kick way over his head, right? So I bring that kick about 8 feet over the ground, and he drops all the way to the floor. So there's a gap about this big.
So you used the first one, did you? In the actual film?
No, we had to use the second one because I was supposed to miss him in that particular kick. But it was interesting. But you know, of course, at that time, you know, I was still fighting, and I was just doing that stuff as a kick. In fact, the movie I did with Bruce was strictly just as a kick.
Yeah.
I wasn't really, at that time, interested in the movie career.
Yeah, but you got a starring role in Breaker Breaker.
That was my first one.
If the first one wasn't meant to be an acting, you know, I mean, you weren't meant to be acting career, how did you actually get that part?
Well,
starring role?
I started acting school in 1974, and I was getting a lot of offers to do kung fu movies, you know, the typical kung fu thing. And I didn't want to do those. I wasn't interested in doing those type of films. You know, films where all it was is you open up with a kick and you ended with a kick. I wanted to do films that had a good story to it, with good acting, with good direction, with good martial arts scenes inserted when it was emotionally right, meaning that I've been pushed to the point where I have no way out, and the audience is saying, "Come on, fight those bad guys." You know, now they're excited for me to defend myself. And when I finally do fight, you know, the people are in there punching and kicking right along with me. And I read the script, Breaker Breaker, and that was the kind of story that it was. It was a very low budget film, very low budget, but it was the type of story I wanted to do, so I did it, and it was very successful.
That was after having gone to
acting school for 2 years. Yeah, I'd gone to acting school for 2 years. But then, Good Guys Wear Black was really my first main starring role, which was of a movie of any type of substance with any type of budget.
Yeah, did you enjoy that one? I mean, did you actually go to Vietnam?
No, we didn't. No, we shot that in the States. There's a location outside Los Angeles that looks very much, has the scenery of a Vietnam. In fact, well, of course, there's a TV series in the States called Black Sheep Squadron. I don't know if you got it here or not, but anyway, we shoot almost Vietnam scenes in this particular area.
Yeah. Of course, you were in Return of the Dragon with Bruce Lee. Would you consider this your hit movie?
It gave me a lot of popularity worldwide. It was amazing. You know, that movie cost $145,000 to produce. It's grossed over $60 million worldwide. It's amazing, huh?
You're glad you're in it?
Yeah, of course I am, because I enjoyed working with Bruce Lee in the film. It was a lot of fun. The fight scene is considered the classic martial art fight scene of all time. So it's nice to be involved in, you know, in a fight scene that everyone. In fact, I got a letter. I've gotten thousands of letters fan letters from that movie. And I got a letter one time. A guy wrote, because there's a scene where I throw Bruce to the ground, and he grabs the hair on my chest, and like he pulls it out, right? Well, of course he doesn't for real, but I get a letter from this man, and he says he and his son had seen Return of the Dragon 26 times. And he says, I've got to ask you.
They weren't selling ice creams in the stores.
Pardon me?
They weren't selling ice creams in the stores. So
it's amazing. People have seen this movie so many times. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've gotten letters where people have seen it 18, 19, 20 times, and because of the fight scene. But he says, did Bruce really pull the hair out of your chest? He said, if he did, you're really a stud. You know? So I wrote back and said, no, not for real, he didn't. But it's interesting to think of how people react to the film.
Yeah. So what next?
Well, I have to be
films?
back home Monday. I've got 4 movie offers. I just finished another movie that will be coming over in the near future called The Octagon. That's very good. And I have 4 offers now that I've got to decide, you know, what film I want to do this summer.
So it'll be films and not television or anything?
No, I don't want to do television as yet, Graham. Mainly because you work all year round. And there's certain times of the year that I cut my activities down drastically, because I have 2 teenage boys who are in high school, and they play American football and baseball, and during that particular time of the year I kind of slow my activities down so I can go to their games.
Well, thanks very much, Chuck, for coming along, and every success in the future.
Thank you, Graham.